Maseru. Thank you very much for joining us, Ntabi. We are now live on YouTube. Those who feel that the cost of data on Instagram is heavy, you just go to YouTube. It's cheaper on YouTube. Okay, I know that. I've tried it. Charles Ndifi, okay. Charles is studying at UJ. Once reached out and inspired me. Okay, I got you, Charles. Thank you so much, Charles. Now I know which Charles from Windhoek you are. Okay, Mqedisi from Nelspruit, my man from Nelspruit. Okay, tell your friends who join us on YouTube that we are here. We are starting. Wikanyo, good afternoon from Katu. I'm waiting to see my people from Baisaho University in Botswana. If they are there from Witekanelo College in Botswana, let's see if you are there. Good afternoon. Andile Maduo, welcome. I was wondering where you are. I missed you last week. It's good to see you here. Welcome, Andile. And then Tebogo Mabusela from Limpopo has to come on as well. We're waiting for Tebogo Mabusela as well. People are coming into the room on YouTube. Thank you very much for those of you who are joining us on YouTube. Great to have you. Great to have you. I'm just going to go on for another 5 minutes or so, and then we get on with it. I can see, you know that I wait for the room to get to at least 100. Otherwise, Sinzanla. I know that all of you want to listen to General Mkwanazi. Me too. It will be recorded, so I'm going to listen to it afterwards. All right. So, Bansi, thank you very much for joining us. Chifiwa. Chifua is from Midrand and is looking to talk to me offline. Chifua is so difficult to talk to me offline. Let me make you aware that I do run a mentorship program. Some people want a once-off meeting. That is okay. What you do is you complete the mentorship application form. You write on the form, you'll see there's questions that I ask you. Tell me what you want. If you want a once-off meeting, I meet with you, I attend to your problem. Time is costly, so I don't do it for free. Otherwise, I will not be able to feed my children. I will not be able to eat myself. I will not even be able to sleep. And that's why I sell my time. As you know, I don't have a full-time job. I'm a hustler, a very educated hustler. So you've got to book the time, just like you book your time at the doctor, at the lawyer, at the psychologist, and so on and so on and so forth. I give good service once you do that. University of Limpopo is in the house. University of Limpopo is very faithful to the Sunday sessions. Good to see you. My homeboy Tieti Rasodi is on the line. Thank you very much for joining us, Tieti. And I can see Loazi Tabela, Nico Hlekani from Midrand in the funding space, especially bursaries. Nico, slide into my DM. Students need bursaries. I can tell them about you. That's the information we want to share. Chifiwa, you want to see how we join the mentorship? I will put the link to the application form for the mentorship. You complete it. Once you click, it goes directly. We attend to it. Of course, we give first preference to people who apply for long-term mentorship. Once offs, I have to find time, we schedule them. And as soon as you pay, you send us the proof of payment, then I make time to meet with you. Otherwise, it's not possible. As you can imagine, you are number 1,000,001 who wants to meet with me, and it's just not possible. Okay, so I'd like to meet and help. And oftentimes we make good progress once people book. I see my boy, Justice Siyisi, Temba. Good to see you, Temba. Thank you so much for joining. All right, today we are talking about AI. We are going pragmatic. And we've entitled the session AI for the future, pragmatic and not panicked. There's a good reason why we say pragmatic and not panicked. It's because there's a lot of fear mongering going out there. Tebogo Mabusela has just joined us. Tebogo was just asking them that I was just telling them that we're waiting for you. Thank you very much for joining me. We're looking at dealing with the fear. There's no point in making people fearful when an innovation comes in. The best thing we can do is to help you get ready, is to help you prepare so that you know you can handle it. So we are not interested in getting people scared and wondering what's going to happen to them and so on and so on, and whether they're going to lose their jobs and so on. So today we are going to give you the balanced take on AI. No panic, no hype, no fear. Just clear tips on the smart moves you should make. Every one of us actually should make some smart moves as we as technology grows and AI becomes even more dominant. There's no point in behaving as if it's not happening. So we're not interested in behaving as if it's not happening. We're interested in helping you cope or make smart moves as it happens. And I asked the question, what do you do if a career that you are in, or people keep telling you that the career that you are in is coming to an end and we don't need people with your skills anymore? It is not true. We still need your skills, but you need to make smart moves. And that's why we are here. Now, I am very fortunate to be able to have access to people, smart people, people who can guide us. And today I'm having this conversation with Ati. Ati Ngubevana. Let me tell you about Ati, and I'll get her online because Ati's story is a very important story. And I'll ask her as soon as she comes on to tell you how she got to this space. Oftentimes, we bring people to this space, and you think they studied AI, they did this and that, and it's important that we hear just a little bit where they come from. But Ati, of course, is a mother of three bundles of joy. And these three bundles of joy can't seem to sit still. And so she's very busy. But apart from spending time within her corporate career, which is going very well, she's one of the top executives in the country. She's not spending time in the corporate career or with her family. She volunteers her time to mentoring young women. And also, she's got a lifelong dream to complete a private pilot license. So who knows? One day you might charter a flight and Ati may be your pilot. A very interesting woman, loved meeting her. And I'm going to ask her to join me. I can see her there. So I'm inviting Ati. Please keep writing your comments. If there's something that you want to share with us that's useful, I'm happy to get you online. I want people who are productive, people who can teach us something. Ati, thank you so much for making the time. You look amazing.
Thank you. I feel so tired, but I'm so excited to be here.
You feel
Good
tired?
afternoon to everyone.
Do you feel tired?
Yeah, it's been a long week, and then the weekend I didn't get a rest. But I'm here.
I'm glad that you're here. Thank you very much for joining me, Ati. Ati, as a start, please tell us, how did you get to this space, this job that you are doing? Because as I said, many young people think that they've got to study computer science and become AI top specialists and so on before they can get into the space. Tell us how you got here.
Yeah, mine is quite interesting. To the point you made earlier on that I had a dream of becoming a pilot. I realized coming from a single parent household that was not affordable. So I ended up studying part-time through UNISA, and I studied finance in the financial institution space. I then started seeing a pattern in terms of where the industry was going. And I think I'm a person who's continuously learning and have that passion for reinventing myself. Mm-hmm. And so through the different patterns I noticed, I was able to do short courses and then apply for different roles within the corporate space that allowed for me to be able to pivot. And my pivots were not immediate. It was small jumps from one department to the next. And eventually, as the pattern started to grow, my skill set then started to improve.
Wow, that's awesome. I mean, one day we'll have time to talk more about your journey because I think it's very instructive, and I'm hoping that everyone who's joining us now can see that there are many routes into this space of AI. Let's start with the question about what excites you most about AI's current capabilities. I mean, you are in the space.
Yes, in this space, especially with the age of generative AI, I think it's very important to note that artificial intelligence in of itself is quite an old discipline. Started in the 1950s. Yes. But with the generative AI and the hype that we've got now, it's the ability from a creative perspective that in a space where we struggle to articulate ourselves well, we found that we now have an ability to be listened to in a way that like we've never been able to before. And that is where the ChatGPTs of the world come in terms of being able to say what you mean in your natural language, and it is then able to understand you in a way that you've never been understood before. There's an opportunity for our languages. So I'm an African at heart, African at heart. We've got the opportunity now to actually encapsulate our languages in our native forms in a way that we've never been able to before. If you think about it, we were never as deliberate as we should have been as Africans to actually document our languages, let alone digitalize them. And now we find ourselves lacking when it comes to AI in languages. So we have an opportunity that is a growing movement across the African continent where people are deliberately understanding their languages, and that will immortalize our cultures and our languages, because as you can appreciate how languages are the custodians of our cultures, that now opens up so many opportunities from employees understanding our cultures and languages better. Imagine talking to a chatbot in isiZulu and then it answers you in English, and you're able to go anywhere in the African continent and be able to communicate with people that you would have struggled to in the past without this understanding of generative languages in their natural form.
I mean, that's interesting, Ati, because what you are saying is that the times of having our languages going extinct is over. So
yes.
And some people don't think that has happened. I mean, there's so many communities around the world whose languages have gone extinct, and now they're trying to dig back. And what generative AI will allow us to do is actually to preserve them, and that's great. But there's also an overestimation when it comes to the power of AI. Where do you think this overestimation is? I mean, people even say ridiculous things about what AI can do. I'm like, but is that true? Where do you think people overestimate its AI's power?
I know. I mean, there's that one meme that where somebody said ChatGPT must continue building a physical structure in construction. We're not yet there, right? I think it's worth noting, to the point I made earlier on, that AI has been in existence. So there's the general intelligence and narrow intelligence. So what we are in now is moving from the narrow intelligence into the general. But the narrow intelligence says, if you are driving a self-driving car, right? It's not really self-driving, right? It's been trained within certain data sets, within certain parameters, but it is not yet autonomous to a point where it can apply logic and human intelligence in a way that we have. So there's still a long way for us to be able to appreciate, because if you think about it, if I use this example in terms of automotive space, if you are driving as an autonomous car and you're coming across a situation where you either have to hit a wall, hit a newborn child and an elderly person, what decision would the AI make versus what a person would have done? Do you see how we need to then pre-program that? But then as a human instinct, you would have found a more human-like reaction to that. That will not say, old person is therefore lived longer, therefore killed. So it doesn't yet have that human-like intelligence that will then make us operate better as humans. I think that's where then the importance of autonomy. We are not yet at that point where we've got general intelligence in our AI. So the people that understand the domain, so if you are in marketing, you understand marketing well enough to inform the AI. If you are in finance, you understand finance enough to inform the data that will train the AI. So therefore, as a person, this will play a very, very important role in what I call human-centered AI adoption, because without the human specialist knowledge, without the human oversight, the AI is as good as a book that's written and that's sitting there. And I think what also becomes important is actually appreciating how AI still hallucinates, right? It makes certain assumptions based on the vast data that it's given. So if you're giving it pieces of information that sound similar or look familiar, it literally is able to consume all of that data and make up its own mind, because it doesn't know which data could be more relevant to next. And that's why I think that again, to that human-centered nature, the ability for humans to decipher hallucination and bias, compared to how humans would have made their thoughts, it can enable thought, but we need to guard against ethical elements that the data that we feed it can be biased. It can elevate potential for hallucination, and therefore human intervention is still required in a large space. And I think one overestimation that I think I cannot overemphasize is how people are already operating in doomsday mode. In terms of their jobs are going to die, developers are not going to be needed, doctors are not going to be needed. Like, do you know what is a doctor? So we are so far from that, but we have the opportunity to enable those capabilities so that instead of you taking 1 hour to do something, you can take 10 minutes. And that for me is a fundamental leap that AI, generative AI has allowed us to do right now.
So basically, AI, one of the things that it will do, generative AI, is to help us do more in the short time that we have. I mean, and I often think the demand is so high for, with the growth of internet and access to information, there's so much demand for us to do more, and there's no time. But it seems as if AI can actually enable us to do more. Not that it will take over what we're doing, but it can facilitate us to do the things that we're doing faster.
Yes, and I think one of the biggest downfalls now, if we're not aware, overestimating it can lead to us not trusting it. Because now you've got these heightened levels of expectations, it doesn't meet them, and then you blame the AI. Yes. Instead of actually understanding what it can or can't do, see where it can help you pivot as an organization, as an individual, as a student. It then allows for you to have a very appreciative understanding of what your strength is and what AI can enable you to do.
That's very helpful, Ati. But whatever we say, people still have this major fear of job displacement. I mean, it's a big fear. So how can employees or workers or companies proactively adapt rather than react to what's going on?
So I'll tell you, and this topic is a personal passion of mine because I've appreciated that as an AI pioneer, the success of the technology heavily relies on people more than the technology of itself. And I think that's one of my points of success, appreciating the value that people bring in AI success. And if there are any executives that are listening to this, whether live or in the future, if they do not appreciate the role that change management has in the success of your AI adoption, then you're going to fail. So what becomes important is what we've done, and I've seen a lot of mentors of mine being able to be very deliberate in actually upskilling themselves. And the way that upskilling plays itself out in our organization is that with each domain that we function in, so if I use the example of finance, there are people that are chartered accountants that have got specialist knowledge that AI right now has not yet reached that specialized knowledge. But you'll find that some of the decision making, some of the many, many Excel sheets that they have to engage with in order for them to come with enough data to make a decision is now enabled more seamlessly with AI. It means that now, when the AI has shown you the data, as the specialist, you are able to apply your mind more logically in terms of, does this actually even make sense? Because if I'm not a chartered accountant, I will assume that the AI is correct. So it means that now, chartered accountants, as an example, need to go and take practical courses on how to build AI models. And the reason why I'm saying how to build, because in that way, we move away from this concept that a lot of sales companies tend to want to say AI in a box, right? I need for people to appreciate that the decision that the AI makes is still your responsibility as a human who's responsible for that piece of work. So AI in a box for me, I need to open the box. I need to see what was the data that came in. How was that data created? Because if you think about it, AI need, from an ethical standpoint, AI needs to adopt societal norms. And what becomes important in understanding what societal norms means is that if you go and have AI that is built with data that was predominantly in a Muslim or Arab space, right? Their societal norms very different to African decisioning processes. Now, if we were to buy an AI decision that will help us in how to grant credit, let's say in the banking space, our credit and risk team want to outsource AI risk decisioning. And then, as you can imagine, from a cultural perspective, how the Arabs and Muslim families and communities would view females, right, in being part of the economy. And if I am a female and I'm in South Africa and I'm now in a bank that is using that decisioning tool, it could decline my credit purely because I'm female. Right? Yes. Whereas in their societal, that is a norm, whereas it is not in ours. So do you see how those small decisions that informed that data being treated as a training source was not going to be applicable to our society. So that knowing how to build the solution, not that you will always build it, it helps you in your function be able to ask the right questions when you are coming across a piece of technology that is meant to enable you. So you need to be careful that this enablement doesn't open you or your organization to risk, because whatever decision you make, you still have to own, even if you're enabled by the AI.
True. That's actually very, very useful. So if I'm a CA, you say one possibility of upskilling is that I can take a course on how to build AI models, right? That's one way. Does it mean I'm pivoting, I'm stopping being a CA to being now into the space, or I continue to be CA, but I'm actually getting into a space where I'm now contributing to AI, serving the CA community better?
So you are, then if we stick to that example, you become an AI-enabled finance executive, right? It means the kind of decisions that you have now, instead of having access to 2 pieces of information to make an informed decision, you now have access to 20. So therefore, you then are a more powerful, because with the data would come more power. But now you're actually able to also make that decision faster. And be able to understand what are the potential risks that come with that. Because if you do certain simulations within the AI, it's able to highlight to you, and even from a thinking perspective, there's certain risk elements that would have passed you because you only are one person, right? So it can then enable you to have that 360 view of how your work could actually be optimized. And then as a person doing the work, you can see what applies to your world or not. And I think one of the things that we've seen happening quite well in terms of AI being an enabler of human capacity is when people, especially in the privacy regulatory space, have to make decisions, even legal space. Now, this is like an interesting section altogether. But the ability to consume copious amount of data is something that's time consuming. It means now, through these AI, I know that an entity in Ghana wanted to understand whether do they have enough data or legislation to actually adopt AI. So can you imagine at a national level how many policies exist in order for you to appreciate what do we have as a start, right? So imagine taking all of those policy documents, putting them into a ChatGPT equivalent, and literally asking that question, should we have new policies coming into effect to enable AI? And that organization realized that actually the government doesn't need in Ghana to actually have a new policy. They have multiple policies in place to enable it. And if they were to put it together, it means they can actually get going. Whereas other countries are starting from scratch, thinking there's nothing there. Do you see how, as a policymaker, it means now you are able in a way that you've never humanly been able to possibly do, reading all policy documents in order for you to see whether you have the policy or not. So you see how across multiple domains, the AI is enabling the human to become a more efficient and effective human being.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, Ati, this is fascinating because I'm thinking of all the many areas where people feel overloaded. I mean, teachers feel overloaded and overwhelmed. Nurses feel overloaded and overwhelmed. The budgets are lower, so hospitals are hiring less doctors, less nurses, and thinking we've got to find a way of using generative AI to help teachers, for example, carry the load. And so, and so in my head, I'm thinking, does it exist elsewhere, and probably there are organizations that are already thinking about that. The best way to give students feedback rather than the teacher giving each student feedback, there could be a way in which students, a generative AI can help us give students feedback. I'm sure in the health space as well. And so I'm thinking in terms of the future, 5 to 10 years from now, what's the one realistic way in which AI could improve our daily lives? I mean, just, because for me, it's already the people that are in my space who are very important in society, but there could be many other ways in which AI could improve our daily life.
Yo, we only have 30 minutes left. Because this is such an important topic, purely because it speaks to the value that AI can bring about societal good, right? And a lot of people don't seem to appreciate what it could do if we're very deliberate as a nation and as a people. When we move away from the fear, right? I know a lot of, I was cheekily responding to a question from one of the ministers in terms of why are we not moving faster in AI? So one of the first things that needs to happen is the digitalization of our society.
Oh, yes.
We're still quite paper-based. So imagine a world where our education system is able to be digital, right? We've got enough devices and students. Teachers have devices. We've got connectivity. Imagine a world where you go to a clinic, your medical file is created in a digital format. Imagine if you go to a SARS when you are registering online, and that's the reality of SARS. You don't have to fill in physical papers. That means now the world is in a digitally encapsulated form. What that also means is that we are then able to digitally track our behaviors. And through the behavior, we generate data. So in the education space, it means that for the first time, we will then be able to have more personalized student journeys in terms of what are the students' strengths and weaknesses. Just by them engaging with a technology, we are able to understand that Ati is a student in grade 7. Whenever we do assessments online, on the digital platform, this is where she's struggling. This is how long she takes to answer this question versus this one. How do we then have a personalized tutor in AI to enable the student? And I remember how I had spoken about the languages earlier on. Imagine the child in the Eastern Cape. Imagine a rural Eastern Cape has connectivity and electricity, right? Imagine this child has a tablet or a device in front of them. And I imagine they are being taught mathematics in isiXhosa. Where they are struggling, the AI can then switch maybe from English to isiXhosa based on the language that they're most comfortable in. To understand how, now from an experience perspective, a child not getting an A in a subject is not a barrier, a function of language.
Yes.
But it's that maybe mentally they do not have the capacity to grasp that language and that they may be stronger in the more theoretical languages. And that is what the AI can then pick up to supplement the effort that is required from a teacher. Similar to the health space, where imagine how we've all got some kind of smart device of the other. That if we were to have a small device, nothing fancy, that monitors your heartbeat, your heart rate, monitors your blood pressure, monitors what you eat, it's able to actually see that based on Ati's behavior, in the next 2 hours, Ati is going to have a stroke. And then it's able to then connect to the nearest clinic. That right now is a capability that is available in your high-end devices. But imagine from a manufacturing perspective, manufacturing is automated, it's affordable. Such devices and the physical devices that are AI-enabled are affordable. That monitoring my heart rate is not something that should be left for the elite. My device calling my mother, my daughter, my kids to say, Ati's heart rate is not okay, check on her. Should not, for me, it's a fundamental human right. And so if we then start adopting the technology, we understand it better. If we understand this technology, we have then the opportunity. So if you think about everything that I've explained now, imagine what kind of SME ecosystem could then boom to support that. That we don't have people manufacturing these devices that I was talking about. Let's allow SMEs in the Eastern Cape that understand this process and are able to build Pulsar large language models that can be infused in these physical devices, infused in education, there's so many opportunities that will then have a social, economic, and lasting benefit for all. But it doesn't mean it's not profitable, right? When people now feel as though I am in the space of I want to be an SME, the same way, another example in the SME space, if I know that I've got chronic medication, and the only reason why I go to the clinic is to do my vitals. Imagine that device does my vitals, and then it actually sends a message to my clinic to say actually vitals are okay. That a nurse or a doctor practitioner could review whether the vitals are okay, and then from there, by pressing OK, a delivery system triggers an Uber or a township delivery company to go and take my medication and deliver it to my house. Because now they know where I am, they know where my vitals are. The only reason why I would have gone to the clinic is to physically fetch the medication. Do you see how many people, can you imagine the number of elderly people that actually go to the clinic to just replenish their chronic medication, nothing else. So that means there's less burden on the physical infrastructure of clinics, less burdens on doctors. And when the doctors actually meet with you, they already have all of this data on your health. They already know actually what's wrong with you based on what these physical devices with the connectivity, with AI is already telling them. So this world for me is almost something that's practically there because the different components are there. But it's a matter of willingness because there's parts of private sectors that are doing this for their own personal and profit gain, I guess. But I think if we don't have that deliberate societal human-centered AI adoption, it will feel like it would happen in 5 years. But all of these things that I'm talking about, the technologies already exist. It's about having a willingness, whether from the decision makers, to actually be deliberate in how this could be done.
I mean, you know, as we were talking and explaining the different contexts in which this can be done, so as we were talking, I was like, but we need that. But we need that. It can save lives. It can save time. It can help us save more. It can even improve the performance of our learners. We can serve people better, you know.
Yes.
So, and then I'm mind boggled. Here's a tool that can come to actually make our lives better, and yet it is sold in many ways as a scarecrow. Like, be scared, it's coming to take your job, not something like be happy. God, it can make us better, you know. And it's a fascinating thing that's where people go. There's someone on YouTube, Professor Shalufu, who's asking the question, notwithstanding the upskilling angle, because he's going to the where we talked about upskilling. Isn't there a reality that some administrative tasks would have become obsolete as a result of AI?
So I'll give you my lived experience when I was a teller, which is my first job. I was 18.
Yeah.
I remember watching my role as a teller being eroded. And I'll tell you how. And if you're South African, and I'm not old, I don't think I'm old. But if you're South African, you remember.
I am old, Ati. I am old. And you are not my age, so you are not old.
So when I was a teller, there was a time where you would have customers coming with a bank book. It was made out of cardboard and it had tables. As a teller, we would have to write, this was your balance. And then we literally withdrew 100 rands. And then we would give you 100 rands. And then there would be a small stamp. And then I would stamp to say, this is your book, right? And even societal schemes used to also have that because they couldn't have a card to go draw outside. And then we started seeing that more customers started swiping their cards, which means they started trusting the bank card. And that's when we switched from using the paper book to the bank card. It meant that now we actually then ended up having some tellers being asked to stand outside by the ATM to actually ask the people, what are you doing before you go into the branch? Oh, I'm here to withdraw, because they didn't trust the ATMs. We would then show them how to put in a password. Obviously, you have to stand away.
Yes.
Oh, how much do you want? Oh, what language did you want? Then you would choose your language. How much do you want? You press here, and then the money goes away, and then they feel safe. Eventually, the 100 rands, 200 rands, 300 rands stopped coming into the branch to be withdrawn. We then started seeing the ability for the ATM to give you a balance. I know for some people this feels very strange.
And now nobody goes into the bank with a book. And there are no tellers anymore.
Do you get what I mean? So what I'm highlighting from a role perspective, and this is something I observed as a personal experience, I then saw the pattern, right? Then I saw that I shouldn't stay in this role for long because now at the time the branch then said you can get your full bank statement and it will stamp it in the ATM and then it will come out there. That was like, what? And then you could open an account. You could do transfers. You could, what is this machine?
Yes.
Then came .co.za in the banking space. That for us was like, okay, we are dead. Imagine being a teller in that time. Then the mobile app came.
Yes.
But it was a transformation and an evolution.
Yes.
Right? I think what becomes, when I talk about this, it didn't happen in one day.
Yes.
So if you are in your role, I think you owe it to yourself to almost do an environmental scan of what is happening around you. What is the pattern of my job? What is slowly what am I starting to do less of? Because Excel is now helping me. We used to have to go to the library to do research. Now that's like the strangest concept, right? Now people are saying, oh, we can't use AI to do research. It's rather Google. I'm like, guys, you remember when our teachers used to frown upon Google research? And now that's the standard. Yes. And that was only 10 years ago. Yeah. So therefore, for anybody who seems to fear that falling away, roles will fall away, but it starts with activities falling away. Yes. So it's always a transformation, not a switch. Yeah. So if you are in a current role right now, notice the patterns of what AI is doing. Notice the pattern of what technology. Let's not ignore AI. Yes. What is technology doing to your role right now? Yeah. Then AI will fast track that. Yeah. But there are certain things that will remain. Maybe certain things will be eroded completely in certain roles. Because I remember explaining to somebody how there was a job in Europe once upon a time where people had to climb up a ladder to switch on a lamp, right? And even there were people that whose full-time jobs were to actually be traffic lights. Yes. They would have to slide a color that is red. And so if you were coming and you would see red on that pole, it meant stop. That does not exist anymore. And so life, but still life carried on. So if you understand history enough in the different industrial revolutions, you appreciate that none of what is happening now is new. It's an evolution and a revolution more than it is a switch.
Yeah, and that's why the smart moves are important, and that's why this conversation is important. You are giving people pointers. So indeed, Professor Chalufu, some admin tasks will fall off, but not. I like when you say it's not a switch. It's not like it's on today, tomorrow it's off. It's little activity. So if you are sitting out there, the big thing that you need to be doing is looking at your job, what are activities that are becoming redundant. It's not a job that's becoming redundant. It's activities that now can be done by generative AI, and you can see every day which ones are those, and that's when you start reskilling or upskilling or pivoting or whatever, because you can see. And that's the smart moves that you need to be making right now in your career. And of course, as you say, government can also make smart moves as they see this technology growing to serve our people better in education, in health. But actually, the first thing that they need to do is also to get the technology in people's hands, because once people have the technology in their hands, then they are much more. There's more power. There's more things that they can do. I want to, as we draw towards the end, I mean, we've got 20 minutes, so, and I'll keep looking at time, at the questions that people are saying. People, by the way, Ati, are appreciating very much your detailed explanation. Someone made a comment about, I think it's Prince Evet, I read a comment from Prince Evet who says, yeah, Prince Evet says, you are thorough in your explanations, much appreciated, and we are getting empowered indeed. And I want you to know that people appreciate your explanations, the explanations that you're giving. Yes, and Tebogo Mabusela is referring to the adoption. Your explanation of the adoption of the ATM is on point. It's on point because people forget. We think this is going to be a switch, but the ATM was not a switch, and here we are.
And I always that ATM conversation and the mobile app and the .co.za, when people want to fight AI, right? I did ask them, do you want to go back to the branch?
No.
Is that what you're saying? They're like, no, not like that. I'm like, yeah, what about the teller? Like, exactly. Do you not see how you contributed to somebody losing their job? And they don't see it that way. Because for them, and this is what I advise a lot of departments in my organization. The banking sector had the customer in the center of what they were doing. Mm-hmm. Customers would struggle going into the branch. If you think about the traditional working hours of the branch, it's 9 to 3. Like, who can go to a branch during that time? It means Saturdays. The branches were full. So they wanted to see to what extent can we offer banking to the people and make their lives easier.
It was about good service. It was about good service because even on Saturday, they used to close at 11.
So
it was impossible. Banking was impossible. And then I remember one bank, a green bank, that used to open on Saturdays until beyond 11. And it was like, wow, but it wasn't enough. They closed at 2. So it was better service for us.
Opened on Sunday that shifted branch banking. They were like, should we open on Sunday? Is it worth it? How much are we going to pay people versus customers?
Exactly.
Oh, I remember the time like it was, because it was yesterday. It wasn't that long ago.
It wasn't a long time ago.
And so because lots of us lived through that, I want people to remember we are now also in that space now from an AI perspective. So if your role is going to be eroded or eradicated, think about the ATM and the teller scenario. And also to the point I was making again, that human-centered enabling, so AI for good. How do you then pivot into that space that enables you to contribute meaningfully to society? Because one of my mentees is in supply chain. And she's doing a big data program that we've got in our organization. And the way that she is so blown away by how much data they have from a supply chain perspective, she's saying, I want automation to take this away, right? And she's now informing her new jobs type in her department. Because if you think about it, for the people that are employed, the way that we are so fickle as people, if I've got somebody in my team who comes and tells me, Ati, I've built this model that's going to help us do 1, 2, 3. It's also going to make me shine as a manager, right? So why would I not support it? So therefore, if you are the kind of person that wants to contribute into the AI space, find what would make AI make you look good. And therefore make your manager look good and make your company look good. I promise you, I'm there to come across an executive who fights it. Because then they get to shine in front of the CEOs. Because now they are seen to be adopting and performing better. And then you become that shining star that leads the change in your department.
Absolutely. Someone has asked a question. A Feb Game Changer says, does this mean, Ati, you are encouraging people to upgrade their skills or rather their career fields?
No. So I would never tell you to switch fields, because one of the things I found, and unless you really don't like your field, so that's one thing. But if you genuinely are passionate and enjoy what you're doing, but your fear is that you don't know what's next, I would encourage for you to literally go onto a GPT chat capability and say, I am a supply chain manager that does 1, 2, 3, 4. I would like to understand where AI could enable my function. I promise you, I did this with this, like literally last week with this lady that I met. We went on a rabbit hole of free content that she could do, what she could do as short courses, what she could do online, what classes and universities available in South Africa for short courses, and then degrees that will enable her existing domain. And so that then becomes her, as part of the mentorship, her learning journey is a short course, get the basics. How do I then apply it? How do I then do a year course? Because she's also a mother, right? So it's always trying to balance your real life with your career aspirations, and you don't want to drop one over the other. So I said, if you feel like you don't have time, do a free short course. Then that way, you don't feel like you're wasting money. Then the next one would be when you're done with that, now you realize I've got an hour a week as opposed to thinking I don't have anything. And so that becomes her way of evolving her own career. She actually realized she's got more time than what she thought because her child sleeps at 7, she's up wake up until 10. So she actually had 3 hours in a day, really, you know? So those kinds of personal resilience is so important because there's nobody who's going to save you. I think that for me is so important to appreciate. So do what you can in your small space. Have the right conversations because it's not actually the technology in of itself that's going to save you. If you cannot find your voice to speak to the right team leader, right manager, right senior manager, right executive, to actually talk about your thoughts. I promise you, your thoughts matter. Most times, when you are in a space where everybody's feeling anxious and you're coming with solutions, you become the hero. So then you are in a situation where people will say, no, that is a waste of time, if you can prove the value that you want to bring. So that upskilling for me is so important because it's easy to pivot from your own role to then saying, as part of my PD, that's also important. I want to add this so that it's measurable. Don't be afraid to take on more work so that you prove that you can do it. Then the money will come. Can't overemphasize how a lot of young people tend to want to say, I've done one extra thing today. My company doesn't appreciate me. They are not paying me. But you haven't proven it with enough time, with enough use cases to prove that this is actually choosing, going to add long-lasting value. That's like a whole career conversation altogether. But then there's those softer elements of pivoting that have to come into effect, right? Then there is those people who genuinely have realized they are in the wrong career choice. That's now where the second part of the question is. That is such a difficult one to navigate in terms of pivoting to a point of moving completely out. Tends to be a more complex space to move in. The people I've seen pivoting, which is myself, was almost incremental. Navigating, knowing what is a pattern. So I'm always scanning my environment. What is the gap that other people are not seeing? And then I've been fortunate enough to be in organizations where you don't have to be 100% fit in order for you to get a job. You could have been in an organization for 5 years, have this experience, and then move away from this because you had the base of this. So there's those opportunities from a pivoting perspective that are more complex to navigate than the one of enhancing your existing domain knowledge.
That's very helpful. That's very helpful. So basically, the person who was asking the question, Fab Game Changer, is not necessarily like pivoting, getting into a new career, but it's looking within your career and doing what you can in your small space and saying, how can I get some tech tool be incorporated in our job to make us more efficient and so on. And then I can suggest it to my team leader, and then it becomes part of my performance development or whatever, right? That's what you're saying? Yeah. In that way, you are not just helping yourself, you are also helping the company. The company will look good, but you will look good as well. Okay, so you don't wake up at the end of during assessment and say, but I did this, I did that. So that's one advice, that you do it a priori so that your line manager knows what's going on. Okay. I was asking, I was on this question, the one actionable step that people can take to prepare for an AI-driven future. Are we done with that? Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost the learning the basics of AI and having that curious mindset.
Yes.
And I know maybe like it's not a technical thing that I'm because I'm one of the least technical people ever in the room at any given time, but I need to make these decisions. That curious mindset for me is the reason why I'm here leading one of the top AI practices in Africa. Yeah. And so if I can do it with my finance degree, non-technical, and leading AI strategy, I think that's why I believe anybody can. There was nothing about my life that said I was special, that I'm here where I am. And I'm also even finding that even the technical people are struggling. So interesting that the data scientists are now saying, I've been a data scientist, but I want to impact in this AI space. Actually, what can I do? So there is that need, not only from a technical ability, but those commercial acumen, critical thinking skills. I know you guys spoke about problem solving. Maybe your listeners are going to be tired of this term problem solving, but it is such a critical skill that you must never ever downplay, because we've got so many problems and AI can solve them. If you now have that basic foundation understanding of it with the critical skills, you can solve multiple problems. And that's where the people come in an organization.
That's very helpful. I mean, I agree with you. Problem solving is indispensable, but and that's exactly what the generative AI can do. I mean, so people better not get tired of it, and because anything else generative AI can do. Yeah. Until we're getting towards the end, and I want to summarize for people the smart moves that they should make now, rather than be scared. The big message, guys, is don't be scared. Rather make smart moves. And the smart moves that you make are check the activities that are becoming redundant in your job. Number 2, focus on evolving your career rather than thinking that you do a course in coding and then you are in, or a course in AI, then you are in. You can do a short course that can skill you a bit. You don't need a degree. You can do a short course that can get you in, and do what you can in your small space. Because there's no technology that's going to save you. People think you're going to get a piece of technology, you put it in, and it solves all your problem. But there's no technology that's coming to save you. So do what you can in a small space. See how you can, like, look at the generative AI tools that are there. See how they can be incorporated into your work to make you more efficient. Remember that man plus machine will become even more efficient. Once you've seen that, then add that role as part of what you do, and propose it to your line manager as part of your performance assessment. And you don't need way more than that. You don't need to stop and then go and take a degree in AI and then think that you are now skilled and now you can get a new career. You just evolve from the career that you are in, whether it's marketing, whether it's journalism, whether it's teaching, nursing, whatever you do, you evolve from there. Ati, can I give you the last word in terms of what people can take home?
Yeah, I think for me, what I want people to take away from this conversation is that the best way to prepare for your future is to actually start engaging with it, right? Don't wait for AI to happen to you. Start happening to AI.
That's a good way to stop the conversation. Yes. Don't wait for AI to happen to you. You start happening to AI. Ati, yes. Thank you so much for the conversation. It's been very useful. I have a feeling that, having seen the people that are here, because I know the names, I can see the senior people are just finding it as informative as young professionals. And it's because of where you're coming from. Because some executives are sitting there and thinking, what do I tell my team? How do I coach them? And this will be useful for them as well. So thank you so much for making the time. And thank you for taking the lead and not scaring people, because in your position you could say to people, we're going to fire you, we're going to hire AI to replace all of you, you are all useless, and you are not doing that. Yeah. And you are rather carrying people, professionals, whether in finance or whatever, and for them to evolve their careers. So thank you so much for the work that you do.
All right. Thank you for inviting me. I'm looking forward to future engagements.
Yes, definitely future engagements. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. I hope you learned a lot. I'll see you again on Sundays. Remember, Sundays are a day to learn, to grow, and become a better person. We just invest 1 hour, and that 1 hour can be where you unlock your career. Have a good week. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.
Bye, Ati.